I tell you what, I've heard about enough of the clips. I've heard enough of the Cali Curic and all the ambushes. I haven't got to talk 1 minute about the Bolin Foundation today.
Well,
enough of all that. I want to talk about the Bolin Foundation.
Well, Kenny,
I want to raise some money for my organization. I want to let the people know where my finger in the youth of America has been lately.
Well, Kenny,
that's what I want to talk about.
I'm sorry, but we have a special caller right now on the phone that I've got to take this phone call, so...
What, you're in my show?
Yeah, we're going to have to talk about the Bolin Foundation later because I have a very, very special celebrity.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
A celebrity on the phone, Kenny. I have Jim Cornette himself on the phone.
Kelly, can you hear me?
Yes, how you doing, Jim?
Well, I'm doing real good, and I'm sorry to interrupt the program, but you see, I finally got the opportunity to listen. I've had people tell me what Kenny Bolin was saying on the radio.
Shut up, Bolin. Jimmy, shut up,
Let me tell you something, Bolin. They've heard enough of you, and I'm sick and fed up of hearing from you, so I want the people now to hear something, the truth for once.
You mean to tell me you're not calling to apologize? You're not calling to fix this?
Let me explain.
You mean Damian Giovanni didn't cut the check, and me and you were getting ready to go to Wildlife Radio and be the greatest entertainers of all time?
Kelly, you see that this guy obviously was vaccinated with a photograph needle.
Yeah.
Here's the problem. I've heard what people have been saying that he was saying on this program, but because of my schedule and my travels, I haven't had the chance to listen, and finally I got the chance to listen, called up, and your producer was nice enough to put me through, and I want to just give the opposing viewpoint to what Kenny Bolin's been saying, because I have heard him talking about the whole deal with his jug-headed kid and my inheritance.
Please do.
He expects that his kid Klaus, his kid Catbox, is going to inherit my estate after I pass on. For one thing, I'm obviously not dead yet, and I'm not planning on going anywhere. And for another thing, just because Bolin, just because that 20 years ago, you named me this kid's godfather.
22 years ago, if you were any kind of a godfather.
You named me his godfather. You also named Dennis Corluzzo his god uncle. He had god aunts, god grandparents. You basically named anybody a god something that might spend some bucks on getting the kid a gift, and you would end up being able to pawn it and cash it in for yourself. That's what happened. And now, 22 years later, you expect that he's going to inherit my estate. My wife and family are going to inherit. I'm not going to let you get one finger or any other part of your body in my bank account while I'm living or dead.
You got a lot of damn nerve calling on here. Number one, not apologizing. Number two, not realizing what a great show you and I would be with my mind and your celebrity fame. And then you want to cut out your own godson that you practically has your blood in him?
I don't know whose blood he has in him. As a matter of fact, I understand that your wife, when he was born, was thinking about naming him Target because everybody had a shot at him.
Come on! That is not true, and you know it. That woman was faithful to me till the day I left her. Now, come on, that's a bunch of crap, and you know it. It ain't like the relationship you got going on with your little lady Sin, slutty, yeast-infected, nasty nympho. That's the name she had. She tried to tongue-kiss me at your wedding. You know goddamn well that's the truth.
Let me explain something to you, Bo. You nearly wrecked my wedding. The police were nearly called and involved. You crashed the door to begin with. That story's been told a million times. Let's get back to this. Let me explain to Callie and to the listeners exactly the relationship between you and your son. Because, Callie, did you know, for example, when he was born, Chris, his head was so misshapen and his ears were flapped out so far that Kenny Bolin actually wanted to name him Klaus von Bolin so he could be a German gimmick like Baron von Raschke in the wrestling business.
He looked a lot like him.
No, I didn't know that.
After that, you know how he got the name Catbox, Callie? Have you heard this story?
Well, I heard your podcast, Jim, about him making him sleep beside the cat box. I just played that clip.
When Chris was 9 years old, Kenny Bolin tried to put him to work so he could start paying rent, just like all the wrestlers and people that live in that flop house he runs. He rents out rooms. He makes rooms out of the basement anyways.
And like I told everybody before, it's the best thing I ever did for the kid because I taught him life ain't a handout like you had, like the silver spoon fed you had shoved down your throat from the day you were born. And now he's a high-paid executive at Central State Hospital, and he's a big deal in his town just like his pa.
Nobody would give the 9-year-old kid a job, so he started charging him rent by having him do chores, and he had him sleep on a mattress next to the cat box in the basement. That's how he got the name.
And my dad wouldn't have gave me a mattress, and I'd have probably had to sleep outside.
Kenny.
He had it better than I had.
And I won't even talk about how you booted your mother out on Mother's Day.
I explained that earlier in the show. She couldn't pay the increased rent amount. I had wrestlers that could. I've got a business and an enterprise to run here. I got bills to pay, and I can't have a deadbeat old bag hanging around not able to pay her portion of the bills.
Don't even defend yourself on that one, because I'm going to talk about your son being a highly paid executive at Central State Hospital.
Yeah.
Ellie, Central State Hospital, for people who don't live in the Louisville area, Central State Hospital is the loony bin. It's the puzzle factory.
Yeah.
And he's not a highly paid executive. He's muscle, because he's the guy that holds down the psychopaths and lunatics and anesthetizes them and drugs them,
well,
and contains them and locks them up in the rubber room whenever they get out of hand. That's what Catbox Bolin does for a living. And I wouldn't even. As a matter of fact, he's a good kid. I say things, but only because of his father. He's a good kid, and I might even leave him something when I go eventually, but I wouldn't, because I know that Kenny Bolin will get his hands on
Leave him something. He's entitled to the entire estate.
Guys,
You've never consummated your marriage.
Are you
It's a sham, and you know it. It's a sham. The only reason she latched onto you 9 years ago is so that she could get your entire estate. Now, who do you think's more entitled? Your own godson.
Kenny.
Well, that skank that you married, you lost a bet. The only reason you ended up with her up in Connecticut anyway, and then you moved her down here to one of your mansions out in Prospect that you didn't think I would find. And then when I found that one, you did a $350,000 add-on to your mom's mansion, and now that place is worth over $1 million, and you're trying to kick him out of that.
Kenny.
Let me explain something. Now that you've rattled down my real estate history, let me explain something to you. I for one, had consummated my marriage fairly quickly, but I know I'm a person who knows when I'm being consummated, and you're trying to consummate me right now, Bolin.
I've got something to say, guys.
Get your hands on my money, and if you could have me kick off and give me a stroke or a heart attack, like I'm prone to have anyway, then you'd be happy, because if the kid got the money, you'd have the money, because you got your hand in the kid's back pocket.
Jimmy, you're getting upset.
You got your hands in a lot of kids' back pockets.
Jimmy, you're getting upset.
Jimmy.
Getting upset. Calm down. You know the family history. Calm down. We don't need to settle this on here with Callie.
Let me say something.
One time when we were still speaking and on a civil basis, I told him that it did concern me, because most of the male members of my family die of heart attacks quite early in life, in their early 50s, which I'm 47 right now, which he was kind enough to remind everybody of.
Come on, Jimmy. Everybody knows you're damn near 10 years older than me. Knock it off.
You're 49, Bolin. Let me ask you this.
49.
I may kick off fairly early, but how many 60-year-old, 450-pound walking around?
No, I'm down to 275 now.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
275.
You got to weigh him at the junkyard.
Mr. Cornette, I just want to say something on about his son, how he says he's this high-paid executive, you know. I used to work at... Are y'all still there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're here.
Y'all just got so quiet.
Unfortunately, he's here, too.
Yeah, okay. I worked there for close to 9 years at Central State, and actually, if I was still there, I would be his boss, telling him whose butt to wipe and what pile of crap to go clean up. He is not a high-paid executive.
You got it. You're to tell my son whose butt to wipe, what pile of poop to clean up, and what urine puddle to mop.
Yeah, and
you got a lot of nerve, Callie Keurig, trying to degrade my executive son, the big shot of Central State, just because you were there for goddamn 9 years and couldn't accomplish anything. And you want to drag my son through a pile of shit?
Hey, potty mouth, for one thing, she's right, and for another thing, as a matter of fact, I bet you that not only does he clean up the puddles, but I bet you he brings them home so you can figure out a way to sell them to somebody.
That's right. I would tell him.
Let me tell you something.
He is so crooked. He is such a shyster.
No.
A liar.
I'm going to defend this one.
A carpetbagger. I could go on and on.
I'm going to defend this one. That bag of feces he brought home was from a world-famous criminal who's been all over the news, that I knew that I could get a lot of that off eBay and put some money in my son's account that you hadn't been putting in there and trying to screw him out of. Well, I was reduced to selling a bag of shit on eBay because he was world-famous murderer, and I know I can make some money off from it, and you want to condemn me for that.
And that story went all around Louisville, Kentucky. And when I heard the guy tell me Kenny Bolin's down to selling shit, I said, he's been selling shit for 20 years.
You can be a son of a bitch when you want to be, you know it?
Well, I just wanted to explain to
Like you had to goddamn bring that up.
Oh, for heaven. Hey, you want to talk about your family criminal history?
I don't particularly do.
Did you know, for example, that his father, Kenny Bolin's father, in 1967, was in prison with a Grange Reformatory for cattle wrestling?
He didn't cattle wrestle. He was with the guy that did it. He didn't do it. And my dad only had that cow cut up to bring home 400 pounds of ground beef to feed the family for all the winter and well into the summer. And you want to criticize my dad, Johnny Bolin, for going out and feeding us? And you call him a cattle wrestler? Oh, you bastard!
I didn't call him a cattle wrestler. The state of Kentucky called him a cattle wrestler. At least Chris doesn't have to worry
And he
about
served 8 damn years in the penitentiary for it because he tried to feed his family.
Chris doesn't have to worry about his father going to prison for cattle wrestling, though, at least, does he?
No, you wouldn't have to worry about that either. Your dad was one of the biggest names in Louisville. He was a high-paid executive for the Courier Journal, one of the big shots with the Crusade for Children, one of the big shots with I think, the Louisville newspaper here in town.
You just said the Courier Journal, you idiot.
Same damn
The
thing.
Louisville Times was the other one you forgot because it went out of business 15 years ago.
Yeah, your dad probably had something to do with
He
that.
was also the president of the Kentucky Press Association. But nevertheless, Chris ain't going to have to worry about his father going to jail for cattle wrestling. He's never going to have to do that because, Kenny, you don't have to worry about feeding your family through the winter with 400 pounds of ground beef. If they got hungry and it was a long, hard winter, you could just lay down on a dinner table and give them a knife and a fork and say, have at it. They'd still be chewing in June.
I hope you die tonight. Hope you die tonight. If that's all you think of me, your best friend, if that's all you think of your best friend, and if that's all you think of your godson, you're lower than a sack of shit sold on
My
eBay.
best friend, Kelly, has Kenny Bolin told you the story of how we met?
I don't
He likes to tell people that we met at the wrestling matches, but that's not true. When I was a teenager, I went to the Oldham County Fair, and while I was there, I went up to one of those booths, you know, where you shoot the water in the clown's mouth?
Yeah.
I went up to one of those booths, and I asked the guy, I said, how much is it? He said, 3 shoots for 50 cents. And I stuck my hand in my pocket to draw out my wallet, and I shook hands with Kenny Bolin. That's how we met, and it's been to my detriment ever since then. And we were friends. He used me, he abused me, climbed on top of me, made a reputation and a name off of me.
Wow.
And then when I finally caught on to him, now he started this slander campaign all across America on the internet.
First of all, you ungrateful bastard, your wallet was loose in those skin-tight jeans that you had no business wearing. It was about to squirt out your back pocket, and me being a decent citizen, come up to try and catch that wallet before it hit the ground in the dirt.
Yeah.
And it was loaded with a lot of cash that your mom and your dad loaded you up with. There's nothing you ever goddamn worked for, that's for damn sure.
You see how wrapped up he is about money?
Yes, I
See
do.
how wrapped, because
Well, I don't want to see that much money hit the ground and then nobody get the benefit from it. But I'll let you have it. I gave it back to you.
he's always thinking of a way to get something out of somebody. As a matter, one time I loaned him some money, and he paid me some of it back. This one time I remember, because that's the only time it happened. He gave me a $1 bill. Washington's eyes were bloodshot. That's how tight and cheap he is. I've never seen a day that Kenny Bolin would pay a debt or a bill or not have something in his mind, some reason, some way to try to con somebody out of something, even if they didn't even have it. He'd give it to them and then con them out of it.
Let me tell you something. If you think for one damn minute, Jimmy or Callie, that I'm going to sit here on my own radio show, when I broke the record with listeners, we logged on today with 103,000 listeners, up from 88,000 listeners from last week, and have you all tear me down, tear down my son, talk bad about me, make shame of me, talk about selling shit on eBay, I don't have to stand for it. And Callie, you owe me an apology. Big man Giovanni up north, you better send me a check, and I better see that goddamn Lincoln in my driveway soon, or I'll never do this radio show again.
Kenny,
All I can say is he had a lot of listeners, Callie, but Adolf Hitler had a few for a while, too, and you see how that turned out.
Yeah, that wasn't too well, was it? Well,
listen, I'm sorry to take up your show, and I'm sorry to run off your guest, but that probably was a favor to you. But I got to run here now also because I pulled over the side of the road. I'm standing here on my cell phone. I'm going to get back on the road now, knowing that at least Kenny Bolin won't pollute the airwaves for another week.
Well, we wanted you to have a chance to tell your side and let him know that you weren't going to apologize, and we are very thankful you came on our show. He gets upset like that. He does that, so... But thanks for taking the time
Kelly,
out.
I appreciate you having me on to set the record straight. I'm just sorry that you have to listen to some of the stuff that Kenny comes up with because, down deep, he's probably not a bad guy, but the problem is you'd have to go so far down deep that you'd never get back out again.
Yeah, well, we hope you all work this out somehow, some way, Jim. We really do. And good luck with your book out there. You want to go ahead and tell people where they can buy that?
JimCornette.com. JimCornette.com. I should have got some plugs in, but I was too busy ranting at him. Midnight Express 25th Anniversary Scrapbook. People are saying it's the best wrestling book ever written. We've been successful so far. And if any of you want to check it out or learn more about me, JimCornette.com is the place to go.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thanks for taking time out for us, and we'll be plugging that for you, and we'll get back with Kenny. He'll calm down.
Yeah, sooner or later he'll calm down once he has a meal, and that shouldn't take long.
No,
20 times a day.
He says...
I'll talk to y'all later. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Jimmy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.